Welcome to Just Energy Radio with your host, naturopath and medical intuitive, Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theory that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating. From the swinging of a pendulum to the waves of the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day, each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is when we take everything in our universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita Louise on a journey through time and space where past, present, and future collide. Today, what you believe may be called into question. What we want to know is, who made up the rules? Be brave and step outside the box. We are about to turn our world upside down and venture into the unknown. Hold on. We are departing our own beliefs and entering alternative realms. Enjoy the possibilities.
Hello and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. We are going to have a fantastic show. We have Alfred Webre coming on talking about evidence of intelligent civilizations in the multiverse. And actually, I'm going to change that to the Omniverse. But we're going to find out what an Omniverse is. That's why I didn't put it in the title. But Just Energy Radio is brought to you by soulhealer.com, where you can find out about all the products and services I offer, including medical intuition evaluations, energy healing, and clairvoyant reading. So if there's stuff going on in your life, there's a problem at work, you're having issues in your relationship, or you have a health concern that you need to be addressed, give me a call, send me an email, and we can set up a time for a private consultation in person, by phone, and even by Skype. It's also brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com, where you can jumpstart your intuition today by downloading their free 50-page Jumpstart Your Intuition Guide. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. And I'm just trying to think. I don't really have any big announcements to make today that I can think of. So we're just going to move right into the show, and let me introduce you to our guest. Alfred Webre is a graduate of Yale University and Yale Law School in international law and was a Fulbright Scholar in international economic integration in Uruguay. He has taught economics at Yale University and constitutional law at University of Texas. Alfred is active in nonprofit organizations concerned with peace, the environment, human rights, social justice, consciousness, and intelligent life in the Omniverse. His webpage is Exopolitics.com. We're going to be talking about his new book, The Dimensional Ecology for the Omniverse. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio, Alfred Webre. Hey, Alfred, how are you?
I'm fine, and I'm very happy to be here.
Well, I am happy to have you here too.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
I think you have found a good home here because I have a very intelligent listening audience that really likes to get into the kinds of topics that we're going to be talking about today. So.
Oh, good. So
it's all good.
Great. I'm glad to be home.
Well, good. So let's start here. I mean, it's your first time on the show, and I always like to get some history, at least the first time my guest is on, as to how they got interested in the area we're going to be studying. You know, and for you, it's the concept of studying the universe and all that lives inside. I mean, you taught constitutional law and economics, and I don't know how does that merge with the studying of life in the universe or the Omniverse?
Right. Yeah. Well, toward the I have to go back in time, and this was toward the end of 1972, and I was then general counsel of the Environmental Protection Administration of the City of New York under Mayor John Lindsay, and at that time. the what we call the positivist model, kind of the canonical model of science, that everything is a matter of time, space, energy, and matter in our third dimensional universe or universes, just did not make sense. And I had started to read books that were just coming out at that time, such as Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain by my good friends Ostrander and Schroeder, and Morning of the Magicians. And, that was a very exciting time around the early 70s. And so at the beginning of 1973, and John Lindsay decided to run for president of the United States. And I didn't see myself going into continuing in mainstream politics. So through various connections, I made contact with a professor at Rutgers who was an expert in, he was an experimental psychologist, but he was an expert in parapsychology, which is the study, as many of your listeners know, the study of consciousness, both in telepathy, psi, but also in the continuation of consciousness after bodily death, in what we know as the afterlife or the interlife, the study of the soul, and even the study of God, the study of reincarnation. And he was also an expert in extraterrestrial life. So at that time, we opened up a conversation as colleagues, and I decided just to strike out and left my job in government and just took the plunge and became an independent researcher and author in the multidimensional field. And by that summer, had written my first book, which was picked up by G.P. Putnam's and eventually published in the U.S., Canada, and Japan in the multidimensional area. And it was in all of the airport bookstores, and it was quite the thing. And it was the first book that really integrated modern earth sciences with parapsychology and with prophecies of great earth changes. So it would cause a big stir at the time. So that's how I kind of got into this area. And then in 1976, after the 1976 presidential campaign between the two candidates, Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford, I became director. I met a lot of the Jimmy Carter inner circle in Washington, D.C. during the transition period, and became director of the Jimmy Carter White House proposed extraterrestrial communication study as a futurist at Stanford Research Institute, before the Pentagon shut it down in 1977. So this is how I've gone through a progression. And I think from an incarnational point of view, I needed all of that solid preparation to really be able to navigate my way into a field that I eventually formally developed called Exopolitics, which is the study of intelligent civilizations in the multiverse, which was formalized in the publication of my book Exopolitics, which was published in the year 2005, which I published then. It's available online. People can go to Amazon and get it there, either as an ebook or as a softcover book. And when it was published in in 2005, I discovered through interviews and contact with a whistleblower from a top secret DARPA, Department of Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, and CIA time travel project, that DARPA and the CIA had taken my book from 2005 or thereabouts and had time traveled it back to 1971, where it had been witnessed by this whistleblower who came up and revealed that to him by himself and two other witnesses who were in that project. And it had been taken back and studied, and I was under time travel surveillance by the CIA and by the Department of Defense since 1971. And one of the corroborative incidents, which I then was able in retrospect to put together, was that one of my duties in the Lindsay administration as general counsel in 1971 was that I had to give public speeches in the community on protection of the environment. You know, I go out and talk about air quality, water quality, picking up after your dog, you know, things like that. And one day I got an invitation to go with this outfit that said it was the Delaware Valley Industrial Engineering Association. I said, sure. And this gentleman picked me up in a suit and tie, very much different from the students or housewives that were the normal environmental groups that I would speak to. And we got in his car and we headed due south for a couple of hours. And, you know, all of a sudden, all of my warning lights went off. I said, you know, this is not what it appears to be. And soon we arrived at this office building, went up to the second floor, and it was a large hall with about 50 other men in suits or shirts and ties. And I looked at them and said, these guys aren't environmentalists. These guys are government employees. And so I started giving my standard environmental stump speech. And I knew there's a thing called cognitive dissonance, where you know that something's going on that's not normal. And a lot of them started making funny faces at me, kind of leering at me during the thing. And I knew that this was other than it appears, but I began to see them through double vision. And I just completed my stump speech, and I put rousing energy into it. And they applauded me and gave me a mug, and I went home. And I kind of filed it in the back of my mind as yet one more of these strange experiences. And it turns out later, which I found out after 2005 from this whistleblower from the project, there were 50 CIA and DARPA officials who had the copy of my book I would write in 1999 in Vancouver, British Columbia. It would be published in 2005, and they had it, and they just wanted to see what I looked like in 1971, because they knew that I would be whistleblowing and that I might even be talking to you today on the radio. Because they actually have the capacity to hack into our reality. They have the ability to get into the quantum access and locate any coordinates in the time-space hologram. And, so we're on their screen on time, what I call time travel surveillance. And I've written a number of articles. People can go to my website, exopolitics.com, and articles that talk about time travel and political control. And people will be surprised how the powers that be have used time travel since the early 70s to engage in systematic political control by looking ahead at who's going to be president and then advising that person 20 and 30 years in advance and co-opting them and grooming them. And we can give you tall tales about each of the U.S. presidents and who was groomed in advance. And all of the U.S. Presidents since 1971 have been pre-identified and pre-groomed in advance, and all of the elections have been, in essence, charades. So these are the type of revelations that we've been making in the exopolitical field. So what happened to me was that in 1969, in 2009, here I was time traveling from back in 1969 up to in 2009, I was in Barcelona, and please, I'm kind of giving a long-winded answer here. If you'd like to jump in.
No, keep going. I mean, I have a question about the time travel thing, but just keep going because this is pretty interesting.
Oh, okay. And in 2009, I had been invited to do a book tour of Spain to introduce the Spanish edition of my book, Exopolitics. And I was in Barcelona, Spain, and there's a newspaper there, which is actually the second largest newspaper in Spain. I mean, it's a very, it'd be like the Chicago Tribune or the Washington Post or something. And they asked me up to their offices, which are beautiful offices, and they have a feature which is called La Contra, in which they either put an author or a scientist or somebody who's passing through, and they give them a full page on the back page of the front section of the newspaper. Full page interview with a journalist called Irma Sanchez. So we had a long interview on exopolitics and life on Mars, and it was quite something. And all of a sudden, she toward the end of the interview, she puts down her pen and she looks at me. She says, "Alfred, tell me how the universe functions. What is the relationship of extraterrestrials and reincarnation?" So I sat back and I said, you're asking me key questions because all of a sudden this harkened back almost 40 years to where I began in 1973 with where I started studying parapsychology and extraterrestrial studies at the same time, so I could see them, how they were integrated. And I gave kind of a quick answer, but in a way, this whole book, The Dimensional Ecology of the Omniverse, was my next 5 years since 2009, and it was my extended answer to the Spanish journalist, Irma Sanchez, who asked, how does the universe function? And it was a great discovery to me because I went on to discover all sorts of things. Yeah, I did. And
I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out.
That's right. And I ended up making new discoveries for me, for example, giving, a scientific theory of the omniverse, which it goes, the highest that string theory has ever gotten is the multiverse. And they think, oh boy, that's really something. But they haven't even been able to integrate the afterlife. And, they think that that's all a bunch of hooey, but we have replicable, protocol-based scientific evidence now that, shows what the life of the soul is like, what the soul is like. We even have we didn't have replicable evidence according to the scientific method as to the nature of God.
Okay,
So
well, I'm gonna stop you there because we're gonna, and hopefully we're gonna get to all this because, like I said, I have a feeling you're gonna be like, somebody I just have to have on like 500 times because we're just gonna scratch the surface of all of this. And there was a question in the chat room that scrolled up, but I am going to kind of reflect part of his question and my question. You're talking about time travel. We're going to be talking about multiverses and omniverses and telepathy and all kinds of stuff that for most people is just kind of out there. But you come in, and this is something that I appreciate, is that you come in with some pretty serious credentials. I mean, you're not like a scientist, but you're like a smart guy. You got a law degree. I mean, how do people take it, or do people take you seriously? I mean, your book is the first one that I actually found was actually kind of grounded talking about this subject, about these kind of subjects. A lot of them have been this is my opinion, and this is my opinion, and this is my opinion, and there hasn't been really any meat to back it up. And yours comes at it from a very different perspective. How seriously do people take you in talking about these concepts? I mean, you talk to people, it's like, well, not you, but I was time traveled, to this year. I mean, people look at you weird, or, I was abducted by aliens. People look at you weird. How do people take this topic? And I'm just going to shut up there. How do people take this topic?
Yeah, no, those are very good questions, and they are questions that I had very much in mind when I sat down to look at the various tools that I had to use in communicating this new hypothesis. And so this book actually grew out of a request that I had from Oxford University Press, which is a division of Oxford University. And they approached me and they asked me to write, if I was interested in writing a book on extraterrestrials and the law. That would be sort of the first serious book in the mainstream from an academic press on this subject. And so I knew that it had to be in an academic framework and using those tools. And so part of my background is as a judge. And so from that perspective, I have developed a great deal of respect for the methodology of the law of evidence. And the law of evidence is what the courts have used to weigh evidence for many, many centuries. And that is where you have the different types of evidence. You have eyewitness evidence and how you qualify witnesses. You have documentary evidence in terms of documents, in terms of photographs, in terms of other forms of documents, and how those are qualified. And then there is a law that surrounds how one can interpret all of this evidence. And that law provides a number of safeguards as to what type of evidence is more credible, is admissible. And don't forget that over the centuries, we have used these to uphold marriages, to uphold contracts that are, uphold treaties, contracts that can be, just for the sale of a house, all the way up the sale of an automobile, all the way up to, the sales of very large amounts of capital. In criminal cases, they can involve, whether an individual is guilty or innocent of a serious crime, and whether or not that individual is going to spend a lot of time, if they're found guilty, in a correctional facility, or even in those jurisdictions that have the death penalty, the capital punishment, which I'm not philosophically aligned with, but they can even have capital punishment. So the law of evidence has been used to determine very serious things. And so, especially when you're dealing with subjects that are in dimensions that are strictly outside of our third dimension time-space hologram, applying the law of evidence is a reasonable way to proceed. That is, you can lay it before the reader and say, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it's for you to decide. Here is the evidence. Now, each reader has free will, and their opinion and their judgment is going to go along a spectrum of opinion. And then there's legal standards. Legal standards range from the criminal standard of beyond a reasonable doubt to the civil standard of more probably than not. So which standard are we going to apply here? So after, as people get more and more into the book, they'll see that, the standard that we apply here is more probably than not, on the balance of probabilities. That is, we have all of this evidence, so on the balance of probabilities, is there intelligent life on Mars after you've seen all of this evidence? Okay? And so, how do you feel? And we present a lot of evidence as to that effect in one of our chapters, because what we do is we present a lot of new models, such as the dimension-based model of intelligent civilizations typology. Because when Oxford University Press first approached us with this assignment, the first thing that we discovered was that at least in the public sector, hello, are we still there? At least in the public sector, there was really no adequate typology of extraterrestrial, what intelligent civilizations are. One of the only typologies that existed was a typology developed by a Russian scientist, which Dr. Michio Kaku has made popular, which tries to rate intelligent civilizations in terms of that's the Kardashev scale, and it tries to rate intelligent civilizations on a 0 to 1, 2, 3 scale, 0 type, 1 type, 2 type, 3 type, in terms of the type of energy that they use. Earth, for example, is a zero-type civilization trying to become a one-type civilization before we destroy ourselves. And many civilizations in our universe, for example, destroy themselves before they reach a one-type civilization, which is a sort of a balanced civilization that is not destroying their own planet for energy needs. But that's not really an adequate measure, an adequate typology for the different types of civilizations that exist, that you can apply universe-wide or even multiverse-wide. The definition of the multiverse is the sum of all the universes that exist. And there are other possible typologies that we discovered. One of them by a colleague of mine, Dr. Michael Sala, who's based in Hawaii, says, well, is this civilization aligned with the U.S. military, industrial, extraterrestrial complex or not? Well, the Earth is just one little planet in the midst of a universe, in the midst of a multiverse that's composed of a humongous number of universes. So that's too Earth-centric a criterion. So what we said is, how do the extraterrestrial civilizations themselves, how do they themselves rate themselves? And what we came upon by taking a sample of the extraterrestrial civilizations was to, for example, the Arcturian and others, was to see that the way that extraterrestrial civilizations define themselves is by the dimension or the discrete layer of energy or the density of consciousness in which they are based. And you will see extraterrestrial civilizations or interdimensional civilizations define themselves as, I'm an Arcturian from the 6th density, or I'm a Pleiadian from the 5th density or the 5th dimension. Density and dimension mean almost the same. There's more of a connotation in saying in the density-based system, where densities connote more a scale of consciousness, and dimension denotes more a scale of energies. So with that, we developed the dimension-based or the density-based typology of intelligent civilizations in the Omniverse. And we started a map of our universe, and then of all universes in the multiverse, which is a created part of the Omniverse, by beginning to look at the in our solar system, asking the question, besides here on Earth, do we have another intelligent civilization that, like us, is also based in the 3rd dimension of time-space? And the answer is that both, if we use the law of evidence, both witness evidence and documentary evidence, photographs, we now have solid photographic and witness evidence, eyewitness evidence of an intelligent human civilizations that live on Mars. And so we can go and begin to examine those. Now, Joe, can you give me a status on how Dr. Rita's doing? I'll just start shifting then and begin going into the building blocks. I know that I'm kind of on output here, and that is kind of hard because, I'm just talking without being asked questions, but I'm trying to sort of lay this out as much as I can. And this is building up toward what we call the Omniverse hypothesis. And so why don't I just sort of give an overview of the Omniverse hypothesis. What we've been able to do by going through this vast amount of data, and the data is the result of experiments that use a scientific method. And in brief, what the scientific method is, it's a method in which you use a standard protocol, a standard laboratory protocol, and you have replicable results. And when you have those two ingredients, then you have reliable scientifically based knowledge or data that you can begin to base a hypothesis on. And the hypothesis that we've been able to create from the vast amount of empirical evidence, prima facie empirical evidence, that we've been able to gather over these 5 years of discovery and bring together in this book over many different dimensions of the Omniverse, in the third dimension, in the hyperdimensions of above the third dimension, in the afterlife, in the spiritual dimensions. That hypothesis holds that we Earthlings live in a dimensional ecology of intelligent life that encompasses intelligent civilizations based in parallel dimensions and universes in the multiverse, as well as souls, spiritual beings, and source in the spiritual dimensions.
So, Alfred, is that where I just was, out in the spiritual dimension, somewhere lost in space? or did your buddies just totally hack my internet, because I'm dead on this end?
Well, probably it sounds like you were ejected from cyberspace and spent some time in cyberspace. So I've been talking nonstop. So
also, is it my turn to talk for a while?
Yes, because I'm a bit hoarse. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, I'm not really sure what you were asking or what you were talking about, but I gathered you were talking about the Omniverse, and so,
yeah. What?
And so I'm just going to kind of jump in and make the assumption that you've already gotten this far in, your explanation, but you're talking about the Omniverse, and so is the Omniverse made up of multiverses?
Well,
or did you already get there?
Yeah. Well, we were just about to get there. What we did.
See, then I'm right on cue.
Yeah. Because we kind of skipped over all of the building blocks that you need to get, that you have to prove in order to prove that there is an Omniverse. And we said, why don't we go to the big picture first and find out what the Omniverse is? And then we can go back and look at all the little different building blocks. And and that's when you came back in. And
right on time.
Yeah. And
see, that was the question right before this one.
Right. So it all worked out perfectly. And we even found a formula, an equation for the Omniverse. And it's real simple. And that is that the Omniverse equals the multiverse plus the spiritual dimensions. That's a simple formula. Now, you can say, well, what does the multiverse equal? The multiverse equals the sum of all the universes. All the universes of time, space, energy, and matter. And we'll get in a moment to how many universes there are. I mean, that is a really fascinating, that in itself is like a fascinating subject.
Well, let me just throw in one little baby question. So when we talk about these multiverses, are they all physical in nature, or are we talking about something more?
Well, okay. Inside.
Sorry, I ask hard questions sometimes.
No. Okay. We have the multiverse, and inside of these, there is all of these universes. And the universes have what we call local densities of consciousness or dimensions of consciousness, such that you can have the first density of, let's take our particular universe that we're in, this one that you and I and all of our listeners are inhabiting, and everybody on Earth is inhabiting as one planet inside this particular universe. This particular universe has a local density of consciousness that has multiple levels to it. The first density of consciousness is, I have a wooden desk on which my computer is, and that desk is at the first density of consciousness, as is my computer, as is the cup of tea, as is the telephone, as is my iPhone, as is my pen, as is my notebook, i.e. all of that level of material world. Then we move up to the second density, and I'm looking out through I've got French doors that open from my office out to our back garden, and I'm looking at the plants there, and they're in the second density of consciousness, inside the local density of consciousness inside our universe. And if my cat and my dog and our housemate's dog, who's a chocolate lab, came around, well, they're also inside the second density of consciousness. But these densities is not just like second density. It's not just like second. There's like 2.1, 2.2, and then 2.257. It's a whole spectrum of consciousness within the second level, such that the consciousness of the plant and the consciousness of the dog are different, but they're within the second level of consciousness, and those are very specific, and those consciousnesses are having very specific experiences inside this created universe. And then we'll move up to the third density. Now, the third density is, for example, me. I'm a third density human, and I'm sitting here in my chair looking out at my garden. There's various tiers, and we have a little vegetable garden back there and some trees and things. And so I'm a third density human, and I'm not sort of down at 3.2, because I'm not out there in Gaza invading it and trying to kill other people. I hope that I've, put in enough work that I'm up around 3.9, and I'm doing a little dimensional ascension. here. So I'm a little conscious.
Yeah, I know all of those 3.0 people because they live right around me.
and so and in all of us now, then we'll get up to 4.1 and 4.2. Now, that's where the Earth is heading, and so there'll be a number of us, perhaps on a good day, we're all up in 4.1, or part of us is up in 4.1, when things start getting really synchronous, and we start losing a sense of time. Like now, I was talking to my wife, Jerry. She's also a psychic. She's a psychic and a psychotherapist. And we were saying, where is the time going? And I was reading an article yesterday which said that, and I'm really going to pursue this, but that the day is actually now 16 hours long because the rotation of the Earth has speeded up. But we're still counting it as 24 hours. And I said, if that's true, maybe that's one of the mechanisms of ascension. And that is that time is accelerating so much. And that's why we're sort of casting off the catastrophic timeline, where you have all of the lower densities around 3.1 to 3.2 trying to get Armageddon going. But there's all these outside higher level angelic and higher level ethical ETs who are, having all these higher level energy and frequencies going, such that the Earth is ascending now, so that we're moving out of the catastrophic timeline into positive timelines. But we still think it's a 24-hour day, which it is in one sense, but in another sense it's not, because I sit down at my desk and all of a sudden it's 5:48 Pacific time, and I can't believe it,
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm looking at scientifically based articles that say, did you know that the day's actually 16 hours long, based on the rotation? Even though you're counting it as 24 hours, you see.
Well, that kind of makes sense. I mean, we had a vortex in our house. You go in, you sit down, you start talking, you think, yeah, you've been in there for 10 minutes, and you walk out and like 2 hours have gone by or 4 hours have gone by, and it's like, hey, the vortex.
Yeah. That's exactly an example, Dr. Rita, of what we call the dimensional ecology of the Omniverse. In other words, you think about the word ecology and what is that? And ecology is a living interactive system. And the Omniverse is a living interactive system of dimensions that includes the dimensions of the universes that are dimensions that souls incarnate into for soul development, which is what we're having now. And as part of that ecology are the dimensions of the interlife, also known as the afterlife, and the spiritual dimensions in which are based the spiritual beings and source, which also is known as God. And what we know now from replicable data gathered according to the scientific method is that each soul is created as a holographic fragment of source. So each of our souls is a holographic fragment of source. We are, in a way, like an egg of light from, if we imagine source as a sea of light. And the holographic principle is that the whole is present in each segment of the whole. That's what a hologram is. So each of us is a holographic, like God. So What's true is that all of the multiverse, all of the universes of the multiverse are being continually created by the spiritual dimension, i.e., by the totality of God plus the spiritual beings plus the intelligent civilization of souls. As a collective, we are creating the universes that we are incarnating into for soul development, because we are on our way to becoming gods as well. And
so are we talking like the big G God, or God in the concept of just part of this intelligent energy that pervades the Omniverse? You know, can you give your definition of God? Or
what's the difference?
Well, you know, there are a lot of people that have this belief that there's, you know, some guy with long white hair and a beard sitting in a chair somewhere throwing lightning bolts at people.
Yeah, but all I'm saying, as we start getting into scientific research on the nature of, quote, God, you can ask, what's the difference? And this is really interesting because spirituality and science are now coming together. This science is proving a world that's very much like what the mystics have always talked about.
Well, that's because they knew all of this stuff, and then for some reason we forgot that we already knew it, and now we have to relearn it. Have you ever studied the Hindu information around the birth of Brahma?
Sure. And in fact, people can go to exopolitics.com and you'll just see an article with all the photographs that we just completed an interview with explorer and discoverer Robert Stanley, where we discovered an 11,500-year-old Brahma in the mountains of Malibu, California.
Well, I have to go. When I have internet again, I'll have to go check that out.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm asking that question because if you read the story and read what his characteristics are, it sounds as if, what they're talking about with his birth or his creation or whatever is that he is the God, quote unquote, of this universe and controls all of the energies and vibrations and stuff for this universe. I don't know. We'll have to talk about it offline sometime. I mean, it's a really interesting concept, and you'd appreciate it. A lot of other people go, huh? And,
No, but then we can then start asking, because this is what we had to address in the first chapter of the dimensional ecology of the Omniverse. How many universes are there in the multiverse? You know, that is a key question, and that is a question that is just being just started to be answered now. I'm not sure. Do you guys break at the top of an hour, or?
Yeah, it'll be right at the top of the hour. So you got 5 quick minutes.
Oh, okay, good. So, do you want to go into that area at all, or?
If you can keep it in 5 minutes.
Oh, well, I'm not sure, but I'll just say for the moment that the number of universes in the multiverse is staggering. And the two scientists that discovered that number say it's humongous. And that number is absolutely humongous. And that when you look at the number of for example, one German supercomputer simulation estimated that there are 500 billion galaxies in our universe alone. Astronomers now estimate that there are 100 billion habitable Earth-like planets in our Milky Way galaxy alone, and that there are 50 sextillion habitable Earth-like planets in our particular universe alone. So that anyone who starts saying that the Earth is the only inhabited planet is, they're talking nonsense. And it's the result of an intentional quarantine that this planet has been in since what we call the Lucifer Rebellion. And so we can
all right, don't even go there. Don't even go there yet. Don't even go there yet. But one quick question before we do go to break. You said that there are 500 billion, whatever the number was, galaxies in the universe that they calculate. That would also take the notion that the universe is infinite and actually say that our universe is finite, even though we don't know exactly how big it is.
Right. And there's data showing that the universe is finite, and now there's data showing that the universe is infinite. So it's still up in the air, but you can have, and in the book we show it, you can have a very, very, very large number of universes, each of which is infinite.
Okay, it's a infinitely limited space. Anyway, I'm just moving on. Where's my time? One quick question. You were talking about the different dimensions, or densities, levels of densities. Is that the same as the dimensional space that you hear talked about, in spiritual worlds, as far as like the etheric plane and the causal plane and the mental plane, or are we kind of talking kind of parallel things? Or are we talking apples and oranges here?
That's a good question. No, we are talking the same thing. That is, within our universes, there exist all of these levels of densities of consciousness, and that's inside the multiverse. And that's even separate from the interlife and the spiritual dimensions and God, which are the other part of the Omniverse.
And I'm going to stop you right there, because now we do need to go to break.
Okay.
And, So I'm Dr. Rita Louise. We are here talking to Alfred Webre about his book, The Dimensional Ecology of the Universe. His webpage is exopolitics.com. And we'll be back with Alfred after these words from our sponsors.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.
You're listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
Are you looking for a cure for boredom? Never worry. IRN's new interactive website introduces a number of ways to pass time while you listen to your favorite show. Choose anything from the IRN chat lounge, the game lounge, video lounge, or the mood lounge. These fun, exciting features let you chat in real time with fellow listeners, view live skywatches, play daily posted online games, or pick a show based on topic. The choices are endless. Use your time wisely, keeping it all on IRN.
Who were the gods of antiquity? They've been described as the forces of nature, levels of consciousness, and aspects of our psyche. Stories that depict their incredible weapons, their flying machines, and their amazing adventures are characterized as being the product of our ancestors' fanciful imaginations. But what if the tales of the gods are true? Did the writers, chroniclers, and scribes of our distant past actually document a realistic view of our origin? My latest book, Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, looks at our most ancient legends. Learn of the torrid romances, elaborate plots, violent scandals, and conspiracies that played out in antiquity. Find out the role the gods played in the life and culture we have today. If you want to find out the truth of who we are and where we come from, order your copy of Man-Made today. For more information, go to www.manmadethechronicles.com. That's www.manmadethechronicles.com.
Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Remember, you can take your Inception Radio shows on the go. Just download the Inception Radio Network app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android smartphones and access live shows, past shows, guest lineups, and much more. Just visit the iTunes Store or the Google Play Marketplace and download it today for free.
Move past the crossroads in your life and discover alternative solutions to your deepest concerns at soulhealer.com. So whether it's a physical problem, an emotional issue, a question about work, or troubles in your relationships, naturopath and medical intuitive Dr. Rita Louise can help you. Bring peace, harmony, and health back into your life. Schedule a session today. Visit soulhealer.com right away and live the life you've been dreaming of.
You didn't forget what's coming up tonight, did you? Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Never miss that interview you were looking forward to or the show on your favorite topic. Follow IRN on Twitter, I_R_N, and get reminders about the evening's live shows as well as fun and important updates throughout the week. That's I_R_N, and never miss a great show again.
We only have a couple of seconds before we have to get back to the show, and I want to tell you how you can jumpstart your intuition today. Using my free 50-page introductory guide filled with simple, revolutionary, and proven techniques, you can ignite your intuition and tap into your inner wisdom, all from the comfort of your own home. The Institute of Applied Energetics is the leader in online home study instruction for those interested in becoming a certified medical intuitive, intuitive counselor, or energy medicine practitioner. Now is the time to transform your life and take it to a completely new level. Discover who you are and how you work. Open the door to the world of intuition, health, and healing. You can jumpstart your intuition right away by going to www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com and downloading our free guide. Get the opportunity of a lifetime and live the life you deserve. Download your free Jumpstart Your Intuition guide today at www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com and begin living a life filled with passion and purpose.
Don't have a computer? Is your internet connection down? Don't worry. Use your trusty cell phone or landline and call into our listen line at 401-283-6700 to listen to the Inception Radio Network 24/7. Again, that call-in number is 401-283-6700. For the Inception Radio Network, I am MJ.
Go deep inside yourself and venture into the realm of the unconscious mind with my Meditating on the Kabbalah guided imagery audio CDs. Discover who you are and what you want in life. Meditating on the Kabbalah can help you to open, clear, and revitalize the energetic pathways of your subtle being. They will support you in your spiritual quest by helping you to access the profound insights and inner guidance you need as you work in alignment with your highest good. Let them help you to release negative thoughts and emotions and clear away any limitations that may be keeping you from experiencing your full potential. Walk down the path to health, healing, understanding, and enlightenment with Meditating on the Kabbalah. Order your copy today at www.soulhealer.com. That's www.soulhealer.com.
Hello, Inception Radio Network. Would you like your favorite show to be played again live on air? Well, now the choice is in your hands with IRN's live request portal, an easy way to request your favorite show with a simple click. IRN's live request portal now gives you exclusive access to all of the shows. How easy is it? Simply type a show name or a guest name, click request, even write a dedication message, and that's it. Try it now. Simply visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com, click on the live request tab under the show menu. Now playing your favorite show is just a mouse click away.
And now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you for staying tuned to the second part of the show. This part of the show is brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com, where you can learn to become a medical intuitive counselor, or energy medicine practitioner from the comfort of your own home. So you can start today by downloading our 50-page free Jumpstart Your Intuition Guide and get you started on the way to the door to your perception. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. Also brought to you by soulhealer.com. Give me a call. We'll get you fixed up. All right. We're back with Alfred. His webpage is exopolitics.com. We're talking about his book, Alfred Webre. And his book is The Dimensional Ecology of the Omniverse. Alfred, so we were talking about multiverses and all of those the planets and galaxies and stuff in them. And so I want to ask this question, and I don't know that you've been asked this question before. If I'm sure you've thought about it. So does each universe have its own set of dimensions that regulate that universe? Or do they exist outside of them and are part of the Omniverse in general?
That's a great question. And I think that's a research question. No, really. And so that's why what we did is that we postulated what the basic structure or ingredients of the dimensional ecology of the local ecologies of consciousness are for each universe, or at least for our universe, because I only have experience of this universe. I don't have experience of some of the adjacent universes. And I think I should just now give an indication so people know the scale that we're talking about of the number of the scale of the multiverse. And this is the result, and I think we have to be very indebted to them. These are the physicists Andrei Linda and Vitaly Vachurin of Stanford University, who actually have calculated the number of universes in the multiverse. And they calculated, quote, that the total number of such universes in the simplest inflationary models may exceed a number one can write as 10 raised to the 10th, raised to the 10th to the 7th power. Now, that's 10 to the 7th, or 10 million, and then it's 10 to the 10th million. And when you take the final step, which is raising 10 to the power of a number that is 26 miles long, it generates a number so large that we cannot name it, let alone write it. And
so there's like a gajillion of them.
That number would stretch for 260 million miles. I.e., if we were to write out the number of universes in the multiverse, the number that we will write out in normal, 12-point type would stretch for 260 million miles. And that's why Linda and Baturin said it's a, quote, humongous number. So that's the scale that we're talking about. And we're just in one universe, and we think that our universe is humongous. Mm-hmm. Until recently, we only knew what the universe was. And
we still can only view a small portion of our universe.
Correct.
I mean, there's so much that is out there that we can't see in the Hubble telescope, and we don't really. We have these mathematical models, but we don't know how big it is, like visually, or based on light years or any of that stuff.
Correct. But now, what we do know, as a result of all of this replicable data, scientifically replicable evidence, is that we know that there is a multiverse composed of so many universes that if we wrote them out, the number would be 260 million miles long. And we know that, although we haven't talked about the evidence yet, that there is an intelligent civilization of souls and spiritual beings, God, and that they're in the spiritual dimensions, which are separate from these universes of time, space, energy, and matter. And that the totality is this new entity that has come into being in our consciousness called the Omniverse. And when I say our consciousness, what I'm really trying to do is to take the norms of canonical science, namely that say, the biggest thing going that exists is the multiverse, and that's all we can prove through string theory. And because string theory falls down, and in the book I cite all of the scientists that say, hey, listen, there has to be more. There has to be more. And so we went out and got the evidence that shows that there are more, and we proved that there is an omniverse. And so we found the formula of the multiverse plus the spiritual dimensions equals the omniverse, and all of it up and down is proved. And we showed what the relationships are. And the relationships are a dimensional ecology. They're related as a network of interlocking dimensions, much like the vortex in your house, which is part of the local density of consciousness in this earthly time-space hologram, which connects into the density of consciousness in our local universe. Now, what this has done, I think, and part of the positive social benefit that it does, is that it demythologizes, it demystifies a lot of stuff. It demystifies.
It makes us be very small. We used to be the center of the universe, and now we're just like, this little crumb, barely, a little flea over here in something so much bigger.
But at the same time, there's a holographic fragment of at least the God that created this universe inside each of us. It's just our soul. So we are part of the God that created this universe, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. You're kind of talking about this dimension and other dimensions. As humans, we currently obviously inhabit this dimension. Do we ever get to experience any of the other dimensions you've spoken of? Any of the higher dimensions?
Oh, absolutely. Look, as a soul, and I'm not making this up, I'm just speaking of actual cases that we know about through laboratory protocols and replicable evidence. As a soul, typically, a soul typically in the interlife can do the following. Number one, the soul can simultaneously incarnate in a variety of incarnations. One can incarnate as a human in a third dimensional planet like Earth, in a sixth dimensional planet like Arcturus. One can incarnate simultaneously as a fish on an intelligent fish on a water planet, or as a praying mantis in a higher dimensional planet, or as a feline being in a feline planet, or as a reptilian in a reptilian planet. And we can have all of these experiences simultaneously and process them simultaneously. In other words, the soul is not equivalent to little Alfred or Dr. Rita. Dr. Rita and Alfred are just one of the avatars that the soul of, the underlying being had in the course of a long career. Hello?
I lost your sound, but now we're back. I'm back.
Oh, I'm sorry. Should I?
It's those gremlins.
Oh. Well, yeah. Basically, what I was saying is that the relationship between the soul and the individual incarnation is not linear. A soul can incarnate in multiple incarnations at multiple levels at once.
So you could be a gray that comes to Earth and abducts yourself and does testing on it?
Well, if you and the wisdom of your guides and all of the machinery that goes into deciding on incarnations, because you actually sample your life, and you actually, we're in a very advanced virtual experience, which we actually experience in the interlife before we go through it here. And if that's what it takes, well then, fine. But this is a very highly tuned soul development experience. And
why develop the soul?
What?
Why develop the soul? What's the point and the purpose of developing the soul?
Because the soul is a holographic fragment, a holographic seedling of the God that created this universe. And ye are gods in the making. And so we're on our way to creating even more universes, ultimately, and toward, being even more developed.
See, then it just makes me, were you much of a Star Trek fan?
Not Star Trek so much. I was
Next Generation. That was what I was thinking of.
Yeah. Avatar, Star Wars, was more my kind of speed. But yeah, Star Trek a bit. I knew some of the people that were involved in that, and a little bit, but not totally, but I think that.
And I'll just throw out, one of my favorite characters was Q, and he was omnipotent, and he could do anything. He could make planets appear and he could do anything because he had godlike powers. So are you saying we are moving into that kind of a place where we would be omnipotent? I like that word.
No, right. And in fact, you see, what occurs is that in the interlife, and as we grow, we develop from the intelligent civilization of souls and graduate to being more powerful spiritual beings. We not only incarnate to have soul development experiences, which is like going to, kindergarten, grade school, high school, elementary school, college, postgraduate. What we do is we have practicums out in the universes, and we practice tuning up planets, species development. We practice on tweaking time in, certain places in a universe, polishing up a planet. So we're involved in the process of building universes and their components as we are going forward. And this is all from replicable cases. So this is a long career that we have as creators of the universes of time, space, energy, and matter. And we are involved
in the world that we're in. But in the world that we're in, there's so much negativity, that if we're working on creating these things, then why are we creating all of this control and all of this secrecy and all of this scarcity and all of this just very negative stuff?
No, but I think that there's certain assumptions in that question which may not be totally the case. If we're dealing with Earth, we're dealing with an extremely troubled and targeted planet, which for the last 500,000 years has been under universe quarantine because some of the higher beings that could move around, planets rebelled against this whole system and tried to take it over. That's the Lucifer, Satan people. And that rebellion we're still dealing with the aftermath of. And then also, this quadrant of the galaxy and solar system have been, and this is where the whole Star Wars comes in, have been targeted by, and these have been targeted by interdimensional and extraterrestrial forces. These are creatures within the multiverse, not so much spiritual beings from the spiritual dimensions. These are the Anunnaki ETs, the Draco Reptilians, and Orion Greys, who are trying to take Earth and Mars from the human column and move them over to the reptilian column. And that's where all of that. So we are on an extremely targeted planet, and that's why this is kind of a super place to incarnate into. You get a lot of soul development coming here. It's kind of a premium, place to incarnate into. And the souls that incarnate here are specially known because they did Earth. And
I got the T-shirt.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's why Jesus of Nazareth, who was a paradise son of God, i.e., he was one of the high. He was just under he was like an outgrowth of the God that created this universe. he chose to come here as his experience as a creature in one of the local universes, because he would get maximum warmth. And he was sort of an early parachutist who came in to liberate it from reptilian control, from Luciferic control and satanic control. And he had a face-off with Lucifer. And that's part of the liberation of this planet. And we're sort of the after troops.
So one of the things that you mentioned, I think that conversation is just a whole separate show. So I'm just going to kind of move on here. You mentioned that we were, under attack or whatever by interdimensional beings and extraterrestrials. What's the difference between the two different groups?
Right. Well, actually, there are three different groups, okay? We can call them extraterrestrials, hyperdimensionals, and spiritual beings. Those are all three different groups. And what's really good about working out and coming up with a system that is, now it's at least been verified by experimental data in the dimensional ecology of the Omniverse, is that we can say, oh yes, there are these beings that come from the spiritual dimensions, and they come from a specific level of the Omniverse, known as the spiritual dimensions, and they would be the Lucifers, the Satans, and the advanced spiritual beings. And they aren't creatures that were developed as physical creatures inside a physical universe of the multiverse that were, evolved as humans or reptilians into which souls incarnate. I.e., inside the multiverse, the universes, this is like kabuki theater, where there are all these different types of species, humans, reptilians, greys, Dracos, all sorts of, these are called exophenotypes. And we have a whole exophenotypology in the book, which we show. So you get a map to all of the different types. And that's what how exopolitics happens. And so when souls incarnate into these, this is the theater of, the Dracos versus the humans, and all the theater of exopolitics that has gone on over the eons. The spiritual dimensions, you have something different in state, because these are the beings that create the whole theater. They actually create all of these beings that evolve. They spend eons outside of time creating these beings, creating the universes into which souls incarnate to carry out all of these complex lives. But the cosmic crime of an individual like Lucifer and all the spiritual beings that followed him, and is even greater, because they are perverting their greater power to try and pervert the purposes of the universe. They doing a free will act to pervert a part of a universe has consequences that can go on for aeons, and that affect huge numbers of souls that have incarnated. So that's the distinction between a spiritual being. An extraterrestrial can be, let's say, we think of extraterrestrials more as, say, a human, a Mars human, of the human civilizations on Mars that are known. There are three different exophenotypes. One is the Homo Martis Terris, that are very much like humans on Earth, prior to the solar system catastrophe of 9500 BC, Earth and Mars were a single interplanetary society that were under the rulership of the predecessors to the Egyptian pharaohs. And there were humans on Mars, humans on Earth, and we were both pyramidal cultures, which is why you have so many pyramids on Mars and so many pyramids on Earth. And then we had a fragment of the Vela supernova come into the solar system. It really damaged Mars greatly, made it an obloid planet like a pumpkin, and it crashed into Earth and destroyed the great maritime civilization that we have there, the Atlantis. And the two cultures were separated. But now the Martian humans went underground, but they're still there, but they're in the third dimension. They're in the third density like us. Then they're hyperdimensional civilizations inside the universes. These would be your fourth dimensional Venusians, your fifth dimensional Pleiadians, your sixth dimensional Arcturians, and others throughout the galaxies of this universe, of the multiple dimensions of this universe, and they are on a scale of the local densities of consciousness. You know, humans on Earth are still primarily within third density, although, you know, if we really get it together, we can go up to upper third and into lower fourth.
But I thought that when you moved into some of these higher vibrational states, that you become, and I'm going to say this kind of cutesy, you know, all love and light. You know, so how could there be these power plays for, you know, time and space if, you know, or is what we're told that when you move into a higher vibrational field, you know, it's not really about your emotional energy changing to being all love and light?
Well, I think that there are probably two factors there, if not more. One factor is a distinction among souls that we can call one category is service to self versus service to others. And apparently, service to self souls cannot rise below the lower fourth density. And that is where the Draco reptilians, who are very imperialistic, and their allies, the Orion Greys, are. And they are the ones who have they have set their sights on occupying this quadrant of our galaxy and timelining the takeover of Mars and Earth. They said they were going to do it by 2050. And fascism, Nazism, and the New World Order is part of the rollout in the third dimension of the Draco reptilian fourth dimensional takeover. But they can't rise above the lower fourth dimension because they're service to self. Whereas Earthling humans there's a portion of Earthling humans who are service to others, who can ascend with that portion of the planet that is service to others, and can keep on rising to fourth and to fifth. Now, there's a second complication in this universe. And the second complication is universe-wide. And it has to do with entities called the Archons. And the Archons are like an infestation. They're like a service to self infestation. And you can look at why Earth is a planet of war, disease, crime, and poverty now, it's because it has an archonic infestation. And you can go on exopolitics.com, and I have extended interviews with Robert Stanley and Laura Magdalene Eisenhower, and extended articles with photographs of the Archons. They kind of look like these interdimensional blobs. And it is said that the Archons entered this universe through interdimensional portals that were not meant to be opened up. So that is why, which were further complicated by the Lucifer rebellion. And then the third complication that we have here, which we've just spoken about, is that this is a free will universe, and it's free will not only for the creatures inside of it like us, but also at the spiritual beings level, so that they, like the Lucifer rebellion, all that cohort that chose to rebel, they can go off as well and create havoc. So we are living in a tremendously impacted quadrant here, which is why it's so tough living here on Earth.
So are you saying that not every group or area has the opportunity of free will? I mean, do they end up being kind of, all I can think of is like the Borg, more like an ant colony where someone is in control and they're just like worker bees? I mean, is that what we're talking about here?
Well,
about free will versus not free will?
Yeah. I think that there are two things. Number one, I think that my feeling is that the service to self souls who are now trying to impose a transhumanist agenda on Earth by implanting humans with nanochips in their brains, with nano implants that they breathe in through the chemtrails that go into the bloodstream. They jump the blood-brain barrier, go into the brain where they're entrained by banks of supercomputers that are hooked up to HARP, so that then HARP and supercomputers start feeding them software that they think is the voice of God, but is really just the New World Order supercomputer. And they're being robotized, and they're trying to turn this into a planet of robots, taking away free will. That dark impulse, is very much what the lower order, very much what the Luciferic and Satanic. They're trying to take away the gift that the God that created this universe gave the universe, which is of free will, i.e. there's a battle going on here.
So how much is our government involved in all of this?
Which government?
Well, this planet or the United States or,
okay.
Local.
Yeah. The government of the planet, i.e. the Illuminati sector, the Matrix sector, of which the United States is a part, because the United States essentially has been taken over by the Matrix, the satanic section of the Matrix, and it's a very dire situation for the United States and the American people, I'm sorry to say, in my opinion. They are part of, and they've taken on, they even did secret treaties. You can go on exopolitics.com or Exopolitics TV and listen to an interview that we did with Laura Eisenhower. Her great-grandfather did agreements with extraterrestrials, Dwight Eisenhower, when he was president. And the name of the interview is The Extraterrestrial Invasion Has Occurred and Governments Do Not Want Us to Know. And the U.S. government has been essentially taken over in large part by the negative extraterrestrials through mind control from the lower fourth dimension, and also through the lower negative spiritual dimensions, the satanic dimensions. So so it's a pitched battle. We are starseeds of the light forces that are here, and I remain positive that the light forces are going to be victorious and that we're on a positive timeline. But all I'm doing is describing the terrain and how it works. And likewise, in the book, The Dimensional Ecology of the Omniverse, what we do scientifically is we show how the dimensional ecology is structured and how it works. And that gives one great reason for hope and for optimism, because it shows how powerful the spiritual dimensions are in the individual universes of the multiverse and in the individual planets, and what a large role souls have. Souls come in, and if they're not incarnated between lives, they come in and appear in people's dreams. They appear around as guides, as supports to humans to help them get through all the challenges of this life. So this is a very cooperative and supportive system that we have here. But people in the United States, Americans, are extremely challenged. Souls in the United States are extremely challenged. And I would say that people who are not focused on their soul and working to develop it are in great danger of compromising their soul and, perhaps not losing their soul, but really hurting it and having to spend a lot of remedial time in the interlife, in my personal opinion.
Well, I think that there are kind of two factions. There are people that are really working on it, and then there's a whole other big group that pay absolutely no attention to it at all. Although I do feel it's changed. On some levels it's changing, but then on other levels you meet these people that when you look in their eyes look dead. And you don't even know what to say about it.
Yeah, because they have internalized a lot of the mind control and conditioning of the matrix and the spiritual warfare which is going on. Part of the use of HAARP is that of spiritual warfare, which is intended and designed systematically to cut people off from the divine broadcast, cut off their connections to source by coming in and jamming that silver cord that goes from the top of your crown chakra into even the spiritual dimensions, and through all of the through the interdimensional portals at the core of our universe, at the core of our galaxy. And that is all done intentionally. And it is estimated that 80% of the human race now has been implanted through the chemtrails. They haven't been activated, the full 80%. So that what they're hearing is a lot of essentially matrix programming, satanic programming, and eventually that deadens your soul. So you're not really thinking about the fact that, hey, you are in this isolated dimension that has been under the control of Luciferic forces and demonic forces and draconic forces for a long time, and you're parachuting in and this is a test of your soul power, and you're here for certain reasons, so you better buck up. So it's true, and especially in the United States, whose sole purpose as a corporation is to wage wars and kill souls, kill, positive people. So in my
is
judgment,
that because it's going to impact those other groups that they're fighting for control with?
It's because the United States has been taken over from within by many forces, including the satanic Zionists, who took it over from within, starting with the bank panic of 1807, starting with the Federal Reserve Bank of 1913, continuing, starting with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln and the U.S. Civil War, continuing with the assassination of John F. Kennedy, continuing with the Vietnam War, continuing with 9/11, continuing with the drug infiltration of all of the youth and all of the underclasses to get them on drugs, continuing with exporting the industrial base of the United States, continuing with dumbing down the education, continuing with destroying the family unit of the United States. The United States has been a targeted nation.
Don't forget the pharmaceuticals.
Right. Continuing with the pharmaceuticals, continuing with the GMOs to the point where there's no civil society left. So you have a satanic nation and a population, positive souls, that are left with very little civic protection. And so that's why now everything is so critical, and why all of the individual souls who are awakened within the United States have to be, entirely fortified, really self-fortified and awake, and understand all of the dangers, and why tremendous universe reinforcements are coming in to prevent World War III, to prevent the decimation of the population of progressive souls, in my opinion. And in my judgment, because this has happened to me in the past 5 years while I did this research and came to the insights that I crystallized down in this book, that knowing these insights and knowing this research really fortifies your internal infrastructure and, makes you that much more fortified against all of the environmental pressures that are coming down on us during this transition.
Well, from a spiritual point of view, there has been a lot of literature that has come out, that talks about becoming your authentic self, and listening to your inner guidance. And I feel like that kind of material is working on the side of helping keep you awake, and don't be a sheeple. Listen,
Totally.
Do what you need to do to take care of yourself.
Completely. And the piece that the dimensional ecology of the Omniverse brings is that it provides the science-based connection to those humongous number of universes out there, to the intelligent civilization of souls in the interlife, to the spiritual beings in the spiritual dimensions, to the source out there, and it just wires you up to that connection with hardwire. It's just one more thing. It's like a super vitamin, and that's its function. So,
But it sounds like even if, we're kind of isolated, we are isolated. If we connect with this bigger society out there, it's not that we are moving into a realm where it is rule-free. It just has different rules than the rules we have now that we have to follow.
Well, the essential move is from duality consciousness to unity consciousness. From I win, you lose, to we all are one. And the difference between that is night and day. Because in I win, you lose, that consciousness produces a world of war, disease, crime, and poverty. And unity consciousness produces a paradise on earth. And the more we land unity consciousness on the planet, the more we land paradise on earth. And I'm projecting that, say, by 2024, or in those zones, and it's hard to put a date because all of this depends on how human consciousness is going to move, how all the different processes in the fourth and upper dimensions goes, because that's all reflected, how it goes down here in middle third and upper third and lower fourth. That maybe by 2024, we're really starting to land unity consciousness on Earth and starting to see a little bit of paradise on Earth here. And that's only 10 years from now. Yeah. So that is the goal that I'm starting to put out. And that's the next book that I'm working on, Creating a Positive Future.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, we got, I'm going to say less than 5 minutes. Less than 5 minutes. Let me look at my paper to see if there's any, totally juicy questions on here that I want to ask. So what do we do with all of this info? It's a wrap-up question. So what do we do with all this information as we move forward?
Well, I think that what we do is that as individuals, we start to integrate it more and more into who we are. We own it so that we can start to, walk the walk and start to own our sovereignty and start to reclaim sovereignty over the land and sovereignty over the institutions. They have tried to take over all the homes, tried to take over all the schools, tried to take over all the farms, tried to take over all the armies and the arms, and it's now taking them back. And that's going to have a lot of grounded people that are going to have to start figuring out how to do that. And, and the more that we have internalized, the more that's going to happen. And that we have to do that at the collective level as well, and interacting with our allies at the multi-dimensional level as we go forward. Be in contact with our allies at upper fourth, at fifth dimension, at sixth dimension, in active contact with them. Moving forward.
But do you think they will reveal themselves to us so that people can have more of a, They
are. I mean, people, people are in...
because it's...
They are revealing themselves more and more at the individual level in telepathic contact and in actual contact. They have revealed themselves more and more over the cities, and you can go to exopolitics.com and look at one of my colleagues, Stanley Fulham, wrote a whole book, because he was in contact with the Regional Galactic Governance Council. They said on October 13, 2010, we're going to appear over our ships, are going to appear over New York City. They appeared on October 13, 2010. There are huge photographs of them there. There are witnesses. We have it all documented. We have interviews with him. The Matrix forces tried to say, "Oh no, they're balloons. They're this, that," but they aren't. They're the Pleiadian fleet, and a bunch of other things. So it's all there. It's whether or not you're grounded enough to see beyond the flak that the Matrix is trying
You mean the spin?
Yeah,
the ongoing spin.
Yeah. And so more and more people are now grounded, so they see through all that fog. And so if you want to know what's true, stay tuned to exopolitics.com, our sister websites, or ecologynews.com. We're just issuing later on tonight a total breakthrough on flight MH17, where we show that was a complete false flag called down by the Jesuits to try and start World War III by blaming it on Putin. And we have it fully documented. Or you can go to omniversity.info, where omniversity.info is a free, there's the universe has a university, the multiverse has a multiversity, and now the Omniverse has an Omniversity. Well, you can go to Omniversity. The tuition is free. We have conversations there on the Omniverse. So it's all there. And it's just a question of, hey, carpe diem, grab it. It's all there. It's just a matter of your free will. What are you going to do? Are you going to go for it, or are you just going to sit there? It's your free will. It's up to you.
Well, and with that, I think we're going to call it a wrap on tonight's show, because I'm sure the music is going to be coming up at any second. So, Alfred, thank you so much for a great conversation. Sorry about the little gremlin problem, although I am blaming you and your friends for it. And see, it'll probably come right up. We'll hang up, and then my internet will just go bing and turn right back on. I'm sure that's what's going to happen. And we will talk again soon, I'm sure.
Great. Thank you very much.
So you have a great night, and you're very welcome. That's Alfred Webre. His book is Dimensional Ecology of the Omniverse. His website is exopolitics.com. And next week, wait, I have a piece of paper. Hang on, let's see. Next week, we have Tobias Curtin coming on to the show for both hours. So until next week, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Just Energy Radio. Be blessed.
Join host Dr. Rita Louise each week at this time for Just Energy Radio. Point your browser